Hey, welcome back to my knitting podcast. My name is Addie, otherwise known as a Drop Stitch, and today I thought that we would just do a chill catch-up podcast. I moved recently and I thought that maybe we could talk about the different projects that I've been working on since I moved, some things that I finished, as well as some plans that I have for future projects. I'm just going to be focusing on my fiber arts projects in this video, but I have been doing some fun painting, home DIY, home decor stuff, and I have a whole separate video on the projects I've been doing for all of that kind of stuff. So if that interests you, I'll leave the link to that video down below and you can check that out there. My goal for this podcast is to keep it pretty short and sweet and not over edit it. So I'm gonna try and just talk about everything, give you guys as much detail as I can, and just keep this really easy breezy and see how this format goes. So let's just jump right into it. Just to give you guys some context, I thought that I could tell you a bit about what's going on in my life right now and why I don't actually have that many projects going on or that many finished objects right now. My partner and I just recently moved from New York City to North Carolina. And in that move, I'm also going to be transitioning careers. So previously I had worked as a makeup artist in film in New York City, and I did that for over 5 years, and I loved it. It was great. But I kind of got to a point where I was curious about shifting gears to something completely different. And in doing that, my partner was also getting curious about moving out of the city. And with me not wanting to work in film anymore, we were kind of just let's move. So we did, and now we're in North Carolina, and it's been amazing. But I've kind of been frantically searching for job opportunities since I've been here. I recently landed a part-time job waiting tables, which has been a huge blessing, so grateful that I found that. But I'm also studying for some different certifications so that I can look for jobs in the tech world. So I've also been spending most of my free time studying. I've been doing a lot of networking meetings. I've been beefing up my LinkedIn. I've been very much giving that lately. So I haven't actually been crafting that much. So if you've watched my other videos, you know I'm constantly working on stuff, and I kind of churn out a lot of finished objects, or at least relative for my speed of crafting. But you may notice that there aren't that many here today, and this is accounting for a month and a half of crafting. And that's just because I've been focusing on some other stuff, and I've been busy in my personal life outside of crafting, which who knew that that was even an option, that you could have things going on besides yarn and fiber arts? I didn't until recently, but here we are. That's why this pile is a bit small today, but let's get into it. I guess this is kind of in no particular order, to be honest, because I can't remember the order in which I finished all of these objects. But the first thing that I want to show you is a sewing project, and I'm pretty obsessed with how this turned out. I made some pillows for my couch. So this is kind of cuckoo. I have never lived near a Joann. Living in New York City really only has Michael's and maybe Hobby Lobby. I don't think New York City has Hobby Lobby, but the only store that I was going to was Michael's, in terms of big box craft stores in the city. So I've never had a Joann, but I've also been a big fan of sewing for many years, so I've always thought it would be so nice to live near one. And I was so excited to move to the town that my partner and I now live in because there's a Joann there. Well, I don't need to tell you guys what's going on with Joann, but it's obviously closing down for good. So my mom and I went to Joann the other day just to look at what the sales were doing and, just see what they had left. And I decided to pick up some fabric to make pillows for my couch while I was there. And I found some really cute stuff. So I got 2 different kinds of fabric, and I basically just freehanded pillows. I haven't sewn in a few months, so this was kind of a good little refresher project for me. I didn't follow a pattern or anything. I just sewed, 2 squares of fabric together. For this one, I added a zipper, but I didn't do a very good job. If you look closely, it's very sketchy the way that this was sewn in, for lack of a better term. I just kind of made it up. I totally could have looked up how to install a zipper just to remind myself, but I'm stubborn, so I didn't do that, and I just kind of wung it and it's fine. It's cute. I just put the zipper side down when I put this on the couch, and this has been really cute and cozy. I did the same thing with this pillow, but I didn't add a zipper because we saw how this one went. So I just made this one sewn shut solid. And I have a bunch of polyfill that I'm trying to use up because I don't really make amigurumi, but there was a time when I really wanted to try it. And so I got like an absurdly big bag of polyfill thinking I was getting a normal amount. Anyway, so I have like a ton of polyfill that I'm trying to get through. So that's what I filled these with. And they're really nice. I filled them really tightly, so they're very dense. And I spend a lot of time on our couch in our living room, and I find these really cozy, and they give a really nice amount of back support. So that's kind of it. Made these pillows really simple. I have a lot of this fabric left over because I think I got like 2 yards each of each type of fabric. We need another pillow in our office, so I think I'm going to make 1 or 2 more of those, but I love that fabric. I think they're so cute. I do definitely want to go back to Joann and get some more fabric before they close down because I want to get back into sewing now that I've moved. I didn't do a lot of sewing in 2024, but now I live in a much warmer climate, so I think that sewing different clothes made out of like thinner fabrics might be more relevant to the climate that I live in rather than knitting a bunch of sweaters like I was doing when I lived in New York City. I could get away with that there, but here I'm gonna have a lot less opportunities to wear like thick knit garments, and I don't know, I only have the patience to do so many teeny tiny summer knit tank top patterns, you know what I mean? So I definitely wanna go and stock up on some fabric at Joann because other than Joann, there's only like 2 places to get fabric here in town, and one of them, from what I've heard, is like a smaller, more boutique fabric store, and I don't really have the sewing skills to want to like splurge on fancy fabric, so I don't know if I'm really going to be frequenting that spot, though I'd love to check it out. The other store is a Bernina store, which is amazing. Like, I've been in there and they have such cool stuff, but the fabric's more meant for quilting, and I do want to get into quilting as well, but I don't know. I'm more interested in making garments, and I just don't know that they necessarily carry fabric that I would need for that. So definitely need to go back to Joann and stock up while I can. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Joann, we're here to talk about my project. So let's move on to the next finished object, which is like the crown jewel of all my knitting achievements. I finished my tulip loop roll neck since I moved into this apartment. This is a pattern by Other Loops, and I started this sweater on the first day, or I guess you could say day 0 of my partner and I's Canada trip that we did this January and February. I have a whole vlog series on that trip and the making of this sweater if you're interested in hearing more. I keep saying that I'm going to make a full video dedicated to just like my thoughts on this pattern and this sweater and this yarn and stuff, but I don't know if I will. Let me know if you're interested in that. But I love this sweater. I knit this up in Flying Fibers Yorkshire Medley yarn, and I always forget the shade name, but I will put that on the screen. And then I knit it held double with Alpaca Blaze from Hobie. And oh my goodness, when I was knitting this up, I wasn't sure if it was gonna be scratchy or not. When I tell you this is the softest sweater I have truly ever worn, I think, which is very surprising. I think it looks like it would be itchy, but no, the resulting fabric is just very like squishy and very soft and very comfy. The drape on this thing is fantastic. So I'm really loving this sweater. I've only worn it once or twice since moving here. I've only ever been able to get away with wearing it on days that I would otherwise need a jacket, but I just wear this instead because it's been really warm ever since I moved here. But yeah, I really love this. It challenged me a lot. There were so many elements in this sweater that I had never done before. Like, I had never done seed stitch before. I had never done non-traditional cable patterns before. So like these tulip loop cables, I had never done those before. I feel like all cable projects are very intimidating from the outset, at least to me. Like, I'm always convinced that I'm not gonna be able to do them. But if you can just like follow directions really closely, you can do cables. Like, I don't know. Like, this sweater was very approachable. I was very surprised. I definitely want to check out other patterns from this designer because I thought that the way that she laid out all the instructions, at least for the way that my brain works, I loved it. I found this pattern super easy to follow. I also found it really easy to keep track of where I was in the pattern, if that makes sense. Like the way that she lays out the different repeats of the pattern, because there's a lot of different repeats going on any given row in this, like especially on the back here, you've got this center section decreasing as well as different cable repeats in like multiple sections. And the way that she wrote everything, I found it really easy to keep track of where I was. And I also, like, the fit of this ended up being exactly how I wanted it to be, which is interesting because my only complaint about this pattern is that the gauge didn't make a lot of sense to me. I talked about this in detail when I was making my vlog series making this sweater, so go watch those if you want the full story. But basically, when I was shopping for the yarn for this sweater, I was showing the vendors, I shopped for the yarn at Rhinebeck, and I was showing the vendors the gauge that I needed for this sweater so they could help me, you know, pick a yarn for it. And every single one that I talked to was like, I don't understand how you get that gauge with that yarn weight and that needle size. And I was like, I don't know. I hadn't even like bought the pattern yet, so I was going off of the Ravelry like information snippet that they give you before you buy a pattern. I thought the gauge was weird. I started with the original suggested needle size, and oh my gosh, my gauge swatch was like so far over, it was crazy. I ended up sizing down, I believe, a half needle size. So I'll put on the screen what I ended up using and what was recommended originally. And I actually found, I was measuring as I went, I found that I was on gauge, which was very scary because that meant I had blocked my original gauge swatch with the original needle size, and it definitely grew with blocking. So I was really scared that I was hitting gauge with the smaller needle size because I didn't make a swatch for that smaller needle size. I just kind of like sized down my needles and then started knitting. And I was nervous that I was gonna block this sweater and it was just gonna be way too big to wear. And more than that, because I like an oversized fit, I was nervous that the stitches were just gonna open way too much and look way too loose. I don't know what happened. The blocking gods were definitely on my side because I think it's still, like the fabric itself looks very tight and dense, but it just has like a lot of movement to it. So I don't know. The whole gauge situation with this sweater, if you plan on making it, definitely do multiple swatches and block them, because I've also seen that it's not just me who had this experience with it. If you go on Ravelry, almost every project says something about their gauge being off. So I'm really happy with how mine ended up. It fits exactly how I wanted it to fit. The fabric looks exactly how I wanted it to look, but just, you know, definitely don't just wing it. Like, make a gauge swatch with this one because you might need to play around with your needle size a bit. Okay, next. This is the Ruffle raglan. This is a pattern by Shelby on Instagram. I tested this sweater. I started testing it towards the end of my Canada trip. So that would be like the beginning of February. And the testing deadline isn't up yet. So this pattern isn't yet released, but it will be released soon. I crocheted this using a bunch of different yarns. So this top yarn is a fluffy mohair by Lang Yarns. This center white ruffle is a fluffy mohair from Katya, and then the bottom is also a fluffy mohair from Katya, but it's a thicker one. It's their Wow Fluffy, and this is in their color Salmon, which I always like to mention the color name because like that is not salmon to me. But anyway, that's a color conversation for a different day, I guess. I really liked this pattern. I highly recommend you check it out if you are looking for a nice, straightforward crochet raglan recipe. I really think what Shelby's figured out in this pattern gives you a really nice fit. And I just really liked the way that she laid everything out. And that's why I decided to test this pattern, because I've not really had a lot of success in the past making crochet raglans that fit me well. And I really like how the fit of this one turned out. The issues that I have with this sweater have nothing to do with Shelby's pattern. They just have to do with my yarn choice. Color-wise, I think that this came out so cute and it's so fun. I think I thought of it in planning the sweater, but I just was like, that's a problem for future me, and now future me is present me and I'm dealing with the consequences, is that the yarn that I used on the bottom half of the raglan is like much heavier than the top. Like the top yarn is this thin mohair, right? And I crocheted it in a very open gauge. It's very light and fluffy. This bottom one is a super dense, thick, not mohair. This is like an acrylic situation, but you know what I mean. It's like a fluffy, thick yarn, and it's super heavy. And I use the same hook size for both. So the problem is just that when you put this on, even though I blocked it and I feel like it drapes nicely now, it just like the bottom pulls on the top. And so I think over time I'm worried about the top maintaining its structure. And I already made the yoke kind of like, I think I started the neckline a bit too high up and made it a bit too small. You can make the neckline however wide you want it to be. And I thought I wanted it to be pretty close to my neck. And I kind of wish I had made it a bit more open. So I think that already my shaping on the top half of the raglan is a bit wonky. Like I feel like you can even tell when I hold it up like this. And then it just doesn't help that the bottom half is like pulling down on it. So yeah, I'm just kind of a bit bummed about the yarn choices that I made here, but that has nothing to do with the pattern. I really like the pattern, and I would even consider remaking this and maybe doing like a scrappy cotton version of this sweater, because I think I would get a lot of wear out of something like that. But we'll see. I still haven't taken like photos of this yet, you know, for my like tester photos to send in to Shelby that she can use. So maybe when I style this into an outfit, I'll figure out a way to wear it that excites me and I'll be more stoked about this sweater. But I think as of right now, this is just kind of one of those projects that I made and then I was like, why did I do that? You know? So that's kind of how I'm feeling about this one. But I, again, love the pattern, highly recommend it. And I'm really glad that doing this pattern test connected me to Shelby because she's really sweet. And I think that she has a lot of really cool, fun patterns in the works and like already out for distribution. So you should check out her stuff. Oh, I will say this is also kind of sentimental because I got these two yarns, the white and this Fun Laying Yarns yarn, which by the way, I'm like obsessed with this yarn. I got these in Canada. These were like the last yarns that I bought on my trip. And this Wow Fluffy Katia yarn I got on a trip to Portugal last year. And I had previously, I think I just don't like this yarn, to be honest. I think that's like the underlying problem. I made this yarn into a sweater after my Portugal trip last year, and I didn't like how that sweater turned out, and so I was trying to repurpose it so I didn't have to just like throw it away, and that's why I put it in this sweater. But I think I'm finding that that yarn just isn't my thing. So I could always just frog, honestly, that part of the sweater and just crochet the rest of it, maybe even just in this yarn again. I actually haven't thought about that until just now, but maybe I will do that. There's possibilities, there's ways to make this more wearable for me, but for right now, I'm just kind of like, I think I need to figure out how to style it and see how I feel from there. Okay, let's move on to my whips. This is like a total tangled mess of materials behind me. So we were just talking about crochet, so let's talk about my crochet whip. Boom, I am making a baby blanket. My partner and I are going to a baby shower in like a week or two for his cousin, and I wanted to make a baby blanket for them. I made a baby blanket for my neighbors last year, and it's like the perfect gift for people who are having a baby because they're really fun to make. They're pretty mindless projects, and new parents need so many different blankets. Like they get spit up on them, you never know what's gonna happen. So always good to make a blanket. And this was another Joanne find. I got this Bernat Fluffy Baby, I think that's what this yarn is called, blanket yarn, and it was on sale, and I love it. Like, look how cute this blue one is. It's kind of tangled and attached to my blanket, but I just thought that this was so fun. I'm not following a pattern or anything. I am literally just making this solid granny stitch pattern that I like to do, where you just do like an odd number of double crochets all along the row, and then you chain 2 in the corners and then continue along, and it just makes this more solid granny square rather than doing granny clusters all the way around. And I thought that that would be kind of nice. And this blanket yarn is just so soft, and I think it's gonna be a really nice gift. So it's funny because I never work with blanket yarn, so every time I do, I'm like, whoa, this project is taking me like no time at all to do. Okay, next, I have picked up a new hobby, and that is actually needle felting. I have another whole video on me starting needle felting that I can link down below if you guys are interested in that. But basically, I recommend it. It's super fun. And I actually had something to show you for this, but I can't find them right now. But basically, I have aspirations and hopes of needle felting a bunch of different flowers and then just kind of putting them all over a tote bag. I have a bunch of tote bags like this. This one has a paint stain on it, but I have a bunch of different plain tote bags like this, and I was thinking it would be really cute to just decorate one with a bunch of different felted flowers. Flowers are pretty simple, and they're a good way to practice needle felting, so I thought that that would be a good way for me to practice both, you know, making shapes, making flat objects, and then making 3D objects by putting them on here, and then that'll also help me practice putting felting onto things, because my real goal with needle felting is not necessarily to make 3D objects, but rather I'm really interested in using it as a way to mend garments and add little designs to clothes. I just think that would be so fun. So I think this tote bag will be a great place to start. And yeah, I wish I could find my little flowers to show you, but I'll insert some clips so you guys know what they look like. So no strict timeline with that, but that is just kind of like an ongoing project that I've been doing when I get bored with my other whips. And then this is my last whip. I don't really have a lot of projects going on right now, but this is probably the one that I am the most excited about. This is the Angw slipover vest by Skeiny Dipping. I am just like so deeply obsessed with this. The yarns that I'm using for this are Juniper Moon, and I forget what Juniper Moon yarn this is, but I'll put it on the screen. And then I am using Noro Ito yarn, and I have used a lot of this Noro Ito yarn on this project, which is exciting because I really like that yarn. But I just love this pattern. From the moment that I saw it on Ravelry, I knew I had to make it, and I think it's going to be the perfect string piece, which is really exciting because I think I'm going to finish it pretty soon and get a lot of wear out of it in these true kind of spring days before it gets too hot. I believe that this pattern is in the category of mosaic knitting, and that's all I know about that, so I can't really tell you what that means, but it basically does this cool thing of you do some different slip stitch details and you do a lot of garter stitch with the contrasting colors, and then that creates this really cool textured effect. And from far away, I feel like it almost looks like stained glass almost. I don't know. And then you get closer to it and it just is this really cool textured, satisfying design. So I really love this. I love how it's working up. It's a really fun project to work on because it changes every 2 rows in the pattern. So it's both really repetitive, but there's stuff to keep track of. So it's just like the perfect knitting project. I don't know, like it's the perfect thing to get into a flow state on. And I'm just really loving the way that it's working up. I love this Noro Ito because when I picked it up, I was really only seeing the darker colors here, like these reds and purples and stuff. I had no idea that it had all of these like bright yellow, like the back panel almost feels more like a true rainbow primary color situation to me than anything. But it's just cool because then you get some moments like right now I'm knitting with the darker purples and stuff, and it's just so beautiful against this light blue. So that was a very pleasant surprise because I always like wearing as many bright colors as I can in my wardrobe. I will say about this whip, I definitely didn't do a very good job of keeping track of my increases for the underarm and the v-neck. The designer like gives you a very easy method to use to keep track of all that stuff, and I was just like, la la la, I'm gonna do my own thing. And as a result, I definitely did different increases on both front panels. So I have tried it on since joining the body, and I think you're not really going to be able to notice, but I have a feeling that when I pick up for the ribbing on the outside and on the armholes, it's going to be a little wonky and I'm going to have to do some fudging. So, but I'm really loving this. I love working with 5mm needles and worsted weight yarn. Like, this project feels like it is working up so quickly. And it is. I think I've only been working on it for like 2 weeks. And because I've been so busy, this amount of progress in 2 weeks, it's pretty good. So hoping to finish that up this week, honestly. And I think I'm gonna be able to. I think I'm gonna get a lot of work done on it, like even tonight. But that's it. Other than that, I have a few projects that I mentioned in my spring crochet and knitting plans video that I think I'm gonna tackle next. First things first, I really want to knit up the space top. I've been talking about that quite a bit on this channel because I had a bit of trouble trying to find the right yarns for that project. But that is a pattern by Ching Fibers, and I love how the finished object that results from that pattern looks. I have heard from many people, and by heard, I mean I've seen on many Ravelry projects, like in the notes section, that it's a tricky pattern. Like I think maybe it's not written so clearly or something, because a lot of people talked about having some different issues with the pattern and the instructions and the clarity and stuff. So I think I need that to be kind of the only knitting pattern that I'm working on when I'm working on it, because I think it's going to require a lot of focus. So I think that once I finish the Angw slipover, I'll be working on that next, and I'll cast that on. I already did a gauge swatch, so I'm good there. So I should be able to just jump right in when it's time to cast that on. So I think I'll have that going. And then once I'm done with the baby blanket, I have 2 different crochet projects that I'm thinking of. One is a pattern that I mentioned in my spring plans video. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I'll put it on the screen. And it's just a button-up shirt that I think looks really cool and would be a really good stash buster for some stuff that I have in my stash. But I also last year, like this time last year, I made the Relaxagon shirt, and the way that I made it, I don't like the choices that I made. I was trying to make it really long for some reason, and it just came out way too long. Like, it came out dress length, and I don't want to wear it that way. I want to wear it as a shirt. And I also didn't keep my tension very even between the 2 sides. So basically the Relaxagon shirt is a hexagonal granny square that you sew together. And one side I crocheted much looser than the other, so in the back you can see like a very visible difference in the fit and the gauge of the stitches. So I love the yarn that I crocheted that up in, and I love that piece. Like, I really want one in my wardrobe. So I know that I want to redo that pattern, and I want to have it for spring, but I'm just torn on if I want to go back and remake that or if I want to make something new first. So I'm just going to kind of see on the day that I decide to pick up a new crochet project which is inspiring me more, and I'll go with that. But as you can tell, I just have like crochet collared shirts on the brain right now, so either way I know I'll be happy with what I make. But that's all from me. I know that this was like a super quick casual video, and I hope that that's okay, but I haven't made a video for you guys in a long time because I've been so busy, and I just wanted to get something out and, you know, check in with you guys. And I realized that I hadn't even talked about what projects I'm working on this channel in a long time, so I wanted to make sure that you knew what was going on with me in terms of all my different projects and why you haven't heard from me in a minute. So sorry about that. Thank you for being patient. I don't know how frequently I'll be uploading for the next little bit. Until I get a full-time job and have more of a routine, I think that things are going to kind of be in flux. So I'd like to try and do these kind of casual, loosey-goosey podcasts as much as I can. But in terms of like full project vlogs and my more edited vlogs that I like to do for you guys on here, those take a lot of time to edit. So I don't know how many of those we'll be seeing for the next, you know, month or few months or so, just depending on how long my job search takes. But that's gonna be all from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please be sure to subscribe to this channel. I talk about all things fiber arts, all things crafting. I've even got some DIY stuff on this channel, so if you're into that kind of stuff, then please please be sure to subscribe and check out my other videos. I may not be posting as much here right now, but I definitely have a lot of stuff in my backlog that you can go back and watch if you're into that kind of thing. And please be sure to like this video. All of that kind of stuff really helps my channel. So if you want to keep up with me on a more day-to-day basis, you can follow me on Instagram at _thedropstitch. I tend to post there pretty much every day. I'm pretty active on my stories. I like hearing what you guys are working on. I do Whip Wednesday updates over there, and it's just a fun time. So come hang. That's all. I hope you guys have a great week. Thank you so much for watching, and until I see you in the next one, please be sure to drink some water, stretch your wrists, and please purl responsibly. See you next time. Bye!